All right, ladies and gentlemen, this particular story I found to be pretty damn interesting, I gotta admit to you, because honestly, when it comes to game development, we always talk about the fact that identity politics, seemingly anyway, is taking the forefront when it comes to game development. Now, apparently, we are finding out that that is actually fact when it comes to Unreal Engine. So we have an article here from Bounding Into Comics with a headline that reads, Unreal Engine coding standards require video game studios to use inclusive language in programming and a documentation.
No.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, apparently, in order to use Unreal Engine, which is a very popular engine in game development, you automatically have to adhere to certain standards of inclusivity. It is absolutely ridiculous that this is even a thing, and yet here we are talking about it. So let's get into this article, guys, from Bounding Into Comics. But of course, before we do, if you are new here, just consider hitting that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it, and like the video to push us out into that YouTube algorithm. It says, in proving that identity politics have quite literally seeped into the very DNA of video games, Epic Games has taken to encouraging developers who use their popular Unreal Engine to employ inclusive language in their respective title programming codes. Now, again, employ inclusive language or encourage developers to do so. That's not something that is technically required yet. But what I will say is that these companies tend to do these things when they want to make something permanent, but they don't want to do it so strong right off the bat. So what they end up doing is trying to, quote unquote, encourage you to do so on your own accord. And then if you don't do it, if you start to not adhere to these encouragements, then they will eventually become requirements. It's only a matter of time. But they like to use the word encouragement because it's a little bit softer and they don't have to worry about too much backlash because they can always say, well, hey, it's optional. You know what I mean? These developers don't have to do it right now, but eventually it will become a requirement. Mark my words, it always ends up that way. It says first added to the engine's official coding standards with the April 2022 release of the tool's 5th version and recently brought to light courtesy of its April 2024 update, this new inclusive word choice clause sees Epic Games encourage a curious word choice given that they consider the following of said standards to be mandatory: users to use respectful, inclusive, and professional language when writing or documenting a given piece of code. Now, inclusive code, I didn't know codes were able to be inclusive. You know what I mean? Like, code is just code, right, at the end of the day. And they are trying to make everything about DEI. Literally every fucking thing about DEI. And they have to make it now down to the fucking code of the video game. Tell me how ridiculous that is. And again, I'm glad that Bounding Into Comics caught on to the fact that they used that curious choice of words, which is encouragement instead of requirement or mandatory. And again, it's all because that is considered inclusive language in and of itself. It says word choice applies when you name classes, functions, data structures, types, variables, files, and folders and plugins, explains Epic Games. It applies when you write snippets of user-facing text for the UI, error messages, and notifications. It also applies when writing about code, such as in comments and changeless descriptions. To this end, Epic Games then provided guidance as to what words devs should use and should not use in their writing. Like, oh man, so now this is where it gets good, because when you start dictating language when writing code, doing code is hard enough as it is. The last thing these people need to do is think about how they are not going to offend someone by doing code a certain way. That is the last fucking thing that any coder wants to think about when doing any sort of coding. It is ridiculous that you are now trying to make them use different forms of language when they are coding. That is going to make their job inherently more difficult than it has to be. And this is why I constantly tell people that DEI is the death of creativity. If you cannot just be free-flowing with your creativity and you have to constantly think about how XYZ is going to offend XYZ person, then you might as well not even be creative to begin with. You might as well just give it up because it's going to be extremely difficult to pull it off. It is a stupid mandate, and that's exactly what it is. It's a mandate. It's not encouragement. It's a mandate. It's a stupid mandate at the end of the day, and it's going to ruin any chance that someone can be free-flowing creative, when they're doing their project. It says turning to gender-related language. Again, gender-related language in coding. I mean, I don't know. Epic Games advised devs to refer to hypothetical people as they, them, and their, even in the singular, and anything that is not a person as it or its. For example, a module, plugin, function, client, server, or any other software or hardware component. Further, users are asked to not assign a gender to anything that doesn't have one, nor use collective nouns like guys that assume gender, and also to take care to avoid colloquial phrases that contain arbitrary genders, like a poor man's ex. Regarding slang, the standards call on devs to remember that your words are being read by a global audience that may or may not share the same idioms and attitudes, and who might not understand the same cultural references, and thus aim to avoid slang and colloquialisms even if you think they are funny or harmless, particularly as these may be hard to understand for people whose first language is not English and might not translate well. And of course, devs are also warned to not use profanity. So wow, we are going all the way to the point where now curse words are apparently going to be offensive to people. Like this is how soft people have gotten, where they are trying to compel people's speech so much that even curse words are not something that they want to utilize. Now, again, I can understand if you don't want to use curse words in a video game that perhaps is meant for younger audiences. You know, if it's rated E for everyone, I probably would not be looking to use curse words in a video game like that. But if you have an M-rated mature game, or if you're trying to make an M-rated game, the last thing that should be on anybody's mind is how can we censor certain aspects of this game? You know what I'm saying? That's the whole reason why people lose their minds over censorship to begin with. It's usually happening in games that should not be censored from the start, you know? And I understand E for everyone, totally get it. But if you're going for a higher mature rated game, that should be the last thing on your mind. You should have free-flowing creativity at that point. It says, continuing the standards, next asked by Unreal Engine users to be conscious of their use of overloaded words, and many terms that we use for the technical meanings also have other meanings outside of technology. Examples include abort, execute, or native. They detail, when you use words like these, always be precise and examine the context in which they appear. Finally, the inclusive word choice clause closes out with a list of some terminology that Epic Games believes should be replaced with better alternatives. Oh, here we go. Anytime they do this shit, it is so unbelievably cringe. And this is how women got erased in the first place. Don't you guys realize that a lot of the male-dominated terms almost never get erased, but the women ones are getting erased in mass? And it's because they don't want to offend trans women. You know, they don't want to offend the men playing dress up. That's what all this is about at the end of the day. It says said terminology includes the term blacklist. You can't use blacklist. Oh, shit. Well, I forgot about racial oppression. Alternative lists include deny list. That sounds stupid. Block list. Okay. Exclude list. Avoid list. Unapproved list. Forbidden list. Wow. And permission list. Whitelist. Allow list. Include list. Trust list. Safe list. Prefer list. Approve list. Permission list. These are all cringy as fuck. Master, primary, source, controller, template, reference, main, leader, original, base. Why can't you say master? It's a racial thing. And slave. Oh, we know about that. You can't use, oh, I get it. You can't use master and slave. Oh, Jesus Christ. So all of this has to do with racial oppression. Blacklist, whitelist, master, and slave have to do with racial oppression. This is the most pathetic thing I've ever seen. Imagine looking at coding terminologies for racial oppression. Oh my God, this is so fucking bad. I don't even know what to say anymore. Fucking so. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you did enjoy it. If you did, consider leaving me a subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video, comment, let me know what you thought, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Hypnotic out.